You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, well then,
But I don't know. Who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million
Yeah,
examples.
well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
Well, look who we have here today. Jane Fonda sitting down to chat with Bill Maher. Jane Fonda. I had no idea she was still alive. Not trying to be rude or anything. I just had no idea. She seems like she's doing pretty well for herself, but from what I've heard so far, she sounds pretty much exactly like I would expect a liberal of her age to sound. Let's get a bit more into it before I say more.
He doesn't like regulations. Well, we live in a soup of toxic chemicals. If we don't regulate it, we're all going to die of cancer.
That's true.
And he doesn't do anything about it.
There's also many regulations that aren't necessary, that aren't. I mean, you really don't believe that the state we live in, California, is lacking regulation. There's over 300,000 regulations. I mean,
Well, maybe they're needed.
They're not. When I tried to put in a garage door, I had to have 3 inspections. There should have been none. I should be allowed to change my garage door.
Are you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
Sorry. That is...
No, you know this about California. Come on.
No, I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry. I don't.
You don't? You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that, what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics are. That's not where mine are. I'm sorry to tell you, is because that, I've been saying this on my show, there is 2 parts of the Trump coalition. There's about 1/3 of this country who always loved the hard right wing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Birch Society. We're old enough to remember the John Birch Society.
I had family members who were John Birch.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And these were people who were happy when Kennedy got assassinated. They became the birthers. They became the Tea Party. There's about 1/3 of this country that's very hard right.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they love Trump. When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he now like tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what they...
By people like you.
Because...
Oh my God. Listen, yeah, I just knew it was going to come, yep. This woman is completely out of touch. Yes, all the people, even on the Democratic side, the leftist side, the progressive side, who are turning against the Democratic Party because they've been basically taken over by their extreme wing of hyper-progressives, hyper-leftists, hyper-Marxists, if you like. You know, they're not really Marxists, but, you know, hyper-politically correct, hyper-critical race theory, all that stuff, you know, trans ideology. And she doesn't even see it. You know, no, that's just propaganda. You know, people like you, Bill Maher, you're just spreading that kind of propaganda and people believe you. Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe whatever Jane Fonda thinks, wherever she gets her information from. God knows. I guess she reads exclusively the New York Times.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, well then...
But I don't know. Who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
The NAACP last year issued a travel advisory. You know, that's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to.
Oh, that's even before my time, and I'm pretty old. For those of you who don't know, especially if you're in Europe, Jane Fonda, well, was a very good-looking actress in the 60s, was famously in Barbarella, where she is gorgeous, I'll admit. But then she became kind of a political activist sometime in the late 60s, early 70s. And at some point, apparently, I mean, I was only a young kid then, she traveled to North Vietnam. So this is when the Vietnam War is still on. And frankly, I agree. I mean, if the Vietnam War were on now, I too would be against it. I would agree with the dirty hippies in that sense. I'm very much against American imperialism, unnecessary wars, sending our troops to fight wars that have nothing to do with us. So yeah, I would be completely against it. I wouldn't be in line with their other ideas probably, but against the war, absolutely. Just like I don't think today America should have anything to do with the war between Russia and Ukraine, or the war between Israel and Hamas, or Israel and Hezbollah, and potentially Israel and Iran. So yeah, not our business. Stay out of foreign entanglements. Do not send our resources and our people to die over these wars that have nothing to do with us. So I would have agreed with Jane Fonda on that, and the hippies. Absolutely. I would have stayed out of World War II and World War One for that matter. Anyway, so she traveled to North Vietnam. I believe it was probably illegal because we were at war with them. Although, were we at war? I mean, it wasn't a declared war. So it was like America was helping the South Vietnamese, while the Soviet Union was helping the North Vietnamese. But still, and a lot of people were very angry with her about that. Still today, if there's any veterans, of a certain age, they'll talk shit about that. And yeah, it was a wrong move to do, because when you're at war, you're at war, and even if it's an unjust war, yeah, you should argue against it at home, but you should not be in any way giving aid and succor to the enemy. So anyway, she did that. That's why Bill Maher mentioned that thing about a travel advisory. In
There's
case
a
you
war
didn't
on
know.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have no.
I know, but a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Iran, actually. Has anybody been there? If you've been to Iran, let me know. Or if you are of Iranian extraction or Persian extraction, let me know. I would love to go there.
where they issued a travel advisory for black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous? Do you really think men can get pregnant? That kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. And the way they sort of insist on blurring that line is if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights.
Oh, lordy. Look at Bill Maher, sounding reasonable for a while now. He just can't say, yeah, I think trans women can get pregnant. Is that what he said? But not men? Well, no, a trans woman, by definition. I always have to remember this, too. When the word trans is in front of the noun, man or woman, it basically means fake. So, no, a fake woman, a trans woman, a fake woman cannot get pregnant. That means that's a man who calls himself a woman. No, that person cannot get pregnant. Perhaps Bill Maher meant a trans man can get pregnant, i.e. someone who's actually a woman and calls herself a man. Yeah, because you have to be a woman to get pregnant. And trans people have rights. There is nobody in America who does not have the same rights as everybody else. Now, nobody has the right, to call themselves, there are many things which are privileges, for example, and are not rights. Our rights are enumerated in the Constitution and in legislation. But there are no rights that trans people don't have that other people have. There are no rights that some minority group doesn't have that everybody else has. That simply does not exist in America. Otherwise, people would be suing all the time to get their full rights. Yeah. So the fact that, until fairly recently, you couldn't legally have an abortion in America. I say, relatively recently, as these things go. There is no right to an abortion, right? For example, you may argue otherwise, but no, people, men, decide what rights are. There is no right to, if you're a man, to call yourself a woman. Okay, yes, you can call yourself a woman, but it's not like you have, or yes, you can, but it's not like you can force everybody else to call you a woman and to say you are a woman. You do not have that right. So anyway, sounds like Bill Maher's still wrapping his head around all that.
Respect and protection for trans people. We get that.
So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It's
Oh my Lord. Talk about out of touch. I knew it. Just like my older family members, exactly the same. Sort of old school Democrat liberals.
It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team.
Well,
And that's...
I mean, I don't know. I read 2 papers, and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News more,
No,
I guess.
I don't watch that. That's too far. But you don't have to. I'm not going to torture myself.
Yeah, God forbid you should watch something that's like just completely different. Just to get an idea of what they're saying, Maybe Bill Maher, maybe Jane Fonda. Would have been interesting if she said what media she consumed. Almost certainly the New York Times, and who knows, maybe the LA Times, since she lives in Los Angeles, I assume. But yeah, just completely and utterly out of touch. She hadn't heard about men getting pregnant. Where on earth has she been? This has been going on for years, this whole thing. So yeah, Bill Maher is being, it seems so far like he's having a very gentle conversation with her. I think that's enough of this for now, though. Don't need to go on about it. I was just shocked to see her. I had no idea she was still around. So good on her. I'm not going to say anything bad about her, but just completely and utterly out of touch. Bill Maher, yeah, he has reasonable takes sometimes, but he's still caught up in the whole thing. He's still kind of an old school liberal too, as far as I can see. Anyway, let me know what you think about Hanoi Jane in the comments. What you thought about Barbarella. I thought she was smoking hot in there. Sorry for the sexist comments. I'm not sorry. But, and of course, she is a Nepo baby. Her father was Henry Fonda, who was a big actor in his day. And, got her a job in Hollywood, along with her brother, Peter Fonda, in the 70s. So, that's enough about Jane Fonda. In the meantime, like and subscribe. Really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.